What was your experience in fitness sales?
Well, I would say I wasn't a real good fit in that because it was real high-powered selling, and I prefer to soft sell, like actually introducing to something to somebody and knowing it was a product that they really wanted and can use, not something that you had to force down someone's throat.
So did you?
Well, actually, I believe it was a good training ground because you really learned how to overcome objections, because that's really big in sales. But I just didn't like that high-pressure feel. I felt like that if you didn't meet certain quota, and then you couldn't quite close the sale, then you had to bring in the heavy-duty guy. And to see people squirm in their seat because they were really uncomfortable about the decision that they were making, it just didn't fit for me. I didn't feel right in my heart about that.
So you built a vision for helping people.
I did.
And how did you? But you're in a job where that's not really the main thing. What did you do?
Well, I think there's like this innate desire in everyone's heart that they want to help people. I don't think everybody, at the right time gets to that point, or maybe it takes them later in years, but it's somewhere deep inside you. And so I remember this, kind of the final thing for me was I went back to waitressing because it was easy money and I always came home with money in my pocket. And I worked with a lady that was probably about 30 years older than I was. And when I was younger, I grew up in a trailer park. We didn't have insurance. So I'm looking at this lady and we're working together. She lived across the street from the restaurant we worked in. She had the tight white curly perm like my mother. And we just talked about what she wanted to do when she retired, and retire. She was like, how am I going to retire? And she had no health benefits. She worked every day. There was no way out. And my mind just took me back to, wow, if I keep doing what I'm doing here, I'm going to end up exactly where I was when I started as a kid. Back to the same exact social heredity, and I had to just break the bonds. It really was it. It was this, I saw myself 30 years later, and it was like, that was me. That was going to be the person I was.
And there's no way out.
No way out.
The only thing that people know is what they're surrounded with.
Exactly.
And you were surrounded with a mother that worked really hard, and this and that, and there was no other options.
So what I did was, I knew I had to make a change. I had to have some sort of, career, because I wasn't really finding a career path or following one. And so there was a girl there was a bookkeeping position open. I knew nothing about bookkeeping other than some class I took in high school, but I figured I could add and subtract, and that would take care of that. And it was before the days of all these computer systems that you had to know, just a pegboard system. So it's like, I figured I could do that. So I actually started working in a medical office. And I was just part-time bookkeeping, and I took a cut in pay, to be honest with you, because in restaurant work, you take home money every day, and it felt good. But I knew I had to, it's kind of like suck it up, do it, so I could actually have something on a resume other than I was a waitress.
So you started working for a
medical facility.
Medical facility.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
The interesting part of that was I was seeing people that were doing the same thing I was, and I had
same pattern of work, pattern of not going anywhere.
Well, no, they were coming to work, but they had a different position that I did. In fact, we had an office manager, and so I've always prided myself. I'm a great idea person. I would say I have to work on the follow-up a little bit, but it's like I have idea after idea after idea, but never knowing how exactly to implement it. So she was my office manager, and I would tell her the ideas that I had, and then she would turn them into her own ideas. So you go to staff meetings and you would listen to your idea being espoused, and I'm like, that's my idea.
So you weren't able to, you felt like you were being, you're taking advantage of your ideas, weren't able to be implemented?
No, I realized that I didn't have the position. It was all about the position. So the manager was able to share those items where the bookkeeper wasn't. So I set my sights on, I need to be the manager.
That was when you first realized that in order to be successful, you really do have to be the one in charge of your...
It was like I had to take charge of my destiny. I mean, I really did. So I came up with this plan, and when you're in a small office, people tend to talk, and she would give me a few of her complaints about she actually got to come in late to work because she lived further away so she could miss traffic. And I thought, that's a great deal. I mean, I don't get to do that. So that was a perk, and she got to leave early. I noticed that she dressed better than I did, so obviously she made more money than I did. And those were things that were intriguing to me. So one day I happened to see her paycheck, and it was like, that was a lot different than mine. So it's like, that was my goal. So I brought to her some...
Was it just about money? What was it? Is it?
Well, partially it was in those days, to be honest with you. You know, it's like I was single by myself and you have to pay the bills. And I don't think anybody wants to make the same amount of money forever. They want to move up. It's kind of like climbing whatever corporate ladder. I mean, mine was only maybe a step stool in a small office, but I wanted to move ahead.
So was this the office of David Humphrey?
Yes, actually it was. And so the interesting part was I found her a job closer to her work, and I was looking in the want ads, and so I just thought I'd pass it by her. So lo and behold, she applied for that job and got it. Well, I knew that there was no other person that could get the office manager job, and since I knew what she made already, and it was a 2-week notice deal, I knew that he had no option but to hire me.
You found another job for your superior so that you could take their job.
Exactly.
What happened then? So you met David, and what happened? What happened from then?
Well, he obviously offered me the office manager job.
Because now you guys are
working together.
And you're married, right?
No. I work in his office.
Oh, okay, but now in life right now you're married.
Oh, yes we are. Okay. Last I checked.
So you were working together in the office.
I would say that was a really good proving ground, working together with a spouse. I worked in the front office and I was in management.
So you married while you were in the office?
I did, yes. And so he worked in the back office, and I always thought that was the scariest place there was to be on earth, because it was like a torture chamber back there. Nobody wants to be poked and prodded, and I thought, why did he go to school for that many years to do something like that? So I would run the whole front office, from bookkeeping to booking patients to managing the office and supplies. And
how did you first get into the business? How did you first both decide to do the business together? What was the one
My
issue?
present business I'm in?
Yes.
Well, actually he was already in it.
Okay.
So what I could say is when I first saw the whole business system that I'm in right now, I knew that it was a way that I could leverage my time and money. When we were in the medical practice, it was like never enough. I mean, you can only see so many patients per day. Your overhead continues to climb. I don't care what business you're in. It's like everything gets more expensive. There's inflation. And so we couldn't take a vacation. When we did, we still had to pay our employees. And so traditional business in a box, 4 walls that you have to pay for your lease improvements and everything, it was going nowhere. And when you can see your salary being the same, you might be more production, but new rules come into play, and so that takes part of your income away. We were looking at like the ceiling that was going nowhere. And so we looked at other doctors around the area and how they were living.
So you really felt the business model of a doctor's office really couldn't grow. It was trapped at a ceiling.
I think most physicians go into business and become a physician because they care about people. But there's many ways that you can care about people without having to actually do it within those 4 walls. We wanted to be able to travel and to give our medical care away in third world countries. But even to do that and leave our practice meant that we would lose tens of thousands of dollars during that time that we were gone. So we saw no other choice than to start a second business that was starting to bring income in, so that it would allow us to do things that we had dreams about.
Was it easy when you first started? Was it easy when you first started your new business?
Not for me. It's like I'm really happy to be a wallflower, believe it or not. It's like I'm not one to, shine in the limelight and take all the accolades, because I was the kid in high school that got sick during speech class, and I stayed home and fooled my mom saying I had the flu, but I did anything to not speak in public.
What was difficult about the beginning of your new business with David?
Talking to people. To honestly be talking to people. Now, it's a totally different story when you're in a medical office and you have a white lab coat. That gives you authority. Mm-hmm. People just assume the white coat means you have something special because your name's embroidered on it. But I didn't know anything when I first started my own business. I mean, from array of products to how to approach somebody to talk about it. Seriously, I had to practice an elevator and just say hi to people.
It was your dream and your passion to help people. But you had come from a background of making a quick conversion, compelling someone to do it. How did you change?
Well, I think the interesting thing when you do this type of business, you have to get to know people. It's a real kind of one-on-one personal touch. As much as there are computers and everything else that run all kinds of the backbone of any business, it's a high-touch business.
How people work.
And so you have to get to know somebody one-on-one and develop some sort of relationship and some friendship. So ours is not one where you go ahead and go, hi, here I am, here's your stuff, sign here, and off you go. And if you don't, you're a big loser. It's the type of thing where it's a development, and some people develop faster than others. It just depends on what fears people have to overcome.
What fears? You've helped a lot of people. What are the stories? What kind of fears do people have? And how did you help them overcome it?
I'd say there's like a few main fears people have. Believe it or not, one is the fear of succeeding. I mean, as much as people want to, they'll do so many things that keep them from succeeding. Some people even have, believe it or not, a fear of money because they've heard money's bad or money is evil. When you use it right and you have enough of it, you can do so many wonderful things for it. So it's kind of this paradigm shift of getting people to think about business a little bit different.